To Unicate Talks, where food science, public health, and education come together to support understanding, context, and evidence-based decision-making. Today's episode focuses on folic acid, what it is, why it matters, and why bread and flour in the UK are now being fortified with it. This is not just a nutrition story. It is a story about history, population health, prevention, and how science shapes food policy. Let's start with the basics. Folic acid is the synthetic form of folate, also known as vitamin B9. Folate is a water-soluble B vitamin that plays an essential role in DNA synthesis, cell division, and the production of healthy red blood cells. It is especially important during periods of rapid growth. One of the most critical of these periods is the earliest stage of pregnancy. During the first 4 weeks after conception, often before a pregnancy is recognized, folate is required for the normal development of the neural tube. The neural tube eventually becomes the brain and spinal cord. If folate levels are too low at this stage, the neural tube may not close properly. This can result in serious congenital conditions known as neural tube defects. The most well-known of these are spina bifida, where the spinal cord does not develop correctly, and an encephaly, where major parts of the brain and skull do not form. These conditions can lead to lifelong disability or, in some cases, are not compatible with life. The link between folate deficiency and neural tube defects has been known for decades. Scientists first identified folate in the 1930s, when it was isolated from leafy green vegetables. By the 1960s and 1970s, research had clearly shown that women with low folate status were at much higher risk of having babies affected by neural tube defects. By the late 20th century, large clinical studies confirmed that increasing folate intake before conception and in early pregnancy could significantly reduce this risk. As a result, public health guidance began to recommend that women who are pregnant or planning a pregnancy take a daily folic acid supplement. In the UK, that recommendation is 400 micrograms per day, ideally starting before conception and continuing through the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. However, there has always been a major challenge with this approach. Around half of all pregnancies are unplanned. This means many people do not start taking folic acid supplements early enough for them to have the greatest protective effect. Even among planned pregnancies, not everyone follows supplement guidance consistently. This gap between advice and real-world behavior is one of the main reasons food fortification has been introduced. Fortification means adding a nutrient to a commonly eaten food so that intake increases across the whole population. Bread and flour were chosen for a simple reason. Almost everyone eats them. In the UK, around 99% of households buy bread, and roughly 3/4 of people regularly eat white bread or foods made from non-wholemeal wheat flour. Because flour is already centrally milled and regulated, it is an effective and reliable vehicle for delivering small amounts of nutrients safely and consistently. From December 2026, non-wholemeal wheat flour in the UK will be legally required to contain added folic acid. The level has been set at 250 micrograms of folic acid per 100 grams of flour. This amount has been carefully calculated. It is high enough to raise average folate intake across the population, but low enough to remain well within established safety limits. It is important to understand that this does not replace supplements. Women who are pregnant or planning a pregnancy are still advised to take a 400 microgram folic acid supplement daily. Fortification provides a baseline level of protection, especially for unplanned pregnancies, while supplements provide targeted support for those who need it most. So what impact is this expected to have? Public health modeling suggests that mandatory folic acid fortification in the UK could reduce neural tube defects by around 20%. That translates into dozens and potentially hundreds of pregnancies each year that would otherwise be affected. We also have strong international evidence to support this approach. Countries such as the United States, Canada, and Australia introduced mandatory folic acid fortification of flour years ago. In the United States, where fortification has been in place since 1998, rates of neural tube defects fell by approximately 30 to 50% compared with pre-fortification levels. This provides real-world evidence that population-wide fortification works. It is also worth noting that fortifying flour with nutrients is not new in the UK. Since the mid-20th century, UK flour has been fortified with iron, calcium, niacin, and thiamine to prevent widespread nutrient deficiencies. Adding folic acid continues this long-standing public health approach. As with any nutritional intervention, safety has been carefully assessed. Folic acid intake is monitored against upper safe limits, and ongoing surveillance is built into the regulatory system. Ingredient labeling requirements also ensure transparency, so consumers can see when folic acid has been added. Overall, folic acid fortification represents a preventive health measure grounded in decades of scientific research. It reflects an understanding that preventing harm before it occurs is often more effective than relying solely on individual behavior change. It also demonstrates how food policy can be used to support health across the population, while still allowing for individual choice and targeted guidance. In summary, folic acid fortification of bread flour is about protecting early development, reducing preventable birth defects, and using evidence to shape safer food systems. Thank you for listening to Unicate Talks, and thank you to Dr. Alando Watkis for his contributions as a chartered scientist to this podcast. This episode has explored the science, history, and public health context behind folic acid fortification in the UK, helping build a rounded understanding of why this change matters. Until next time, stay informed and stay curious.